On February 27, 2026, urea fertilizer was selling for $450 a ton in the American market. By mid-March, 3 weeks later, it had crossed $700, a 50% jump in 21 days. And almost no one in the supermarket noticed, because urea is not on a shelf at the supermarket. But what urea grows is on every shelf you walk past. Bread, cereal, eggs, milk, beef, pasta, beer, rice. The list is longer than that. And right now, in May 2026, 12 foods you put in your cart every week are quietly thinning out. Not gone, not yet. Thinning. The label changes, the package shrinks, the brand you used to buy is replaced by a brand you do not recognize. Or the shelf simply has fewer of them day after day, and you start to assume that is normal. This video is about those 12 foods, why they are disappearing, how fast it is happening, and what you can do this week before the second wave hits in August. Let me give you the cause in 2 sentences, because the cause matters more than any single food on this list. About 1/3 of all internationally traded fertilizer passes through the Strait of Hormuz, and that strait is the single largest choke point in global agriculture. Since late February, that strait has been disrupted by the conflict between Iran and the United States. If this is the kind of analysis you want to keep getting, with actual numbers, actual dates, actual sources, make sure the bell next to subscribe is on. Because what you are about to see in the next 7 minutes is not on the evening news. It is in the trade reports. It is in the FAO bulletins. And it is happening this week. A fragile ceasefire has not restored confidence. Tankers sit idle in the Gulf. War risk insurance, in some cases, has been suspended outright by the major insurers. Some shipping companies have rerouted entire fleets at a cost of weeks per voyage. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization warned in April that the clock is ticking on the next planting season. Their words, not mine. The United States fertilizer supply in mid-March was running at roughly 75% of normal levels. That happened right at the moment American farmers needed to put down the first nitrogen on cornfields. The window does not wait. Here's the part most people miss. There are no strategic reserves for fertilizer. The United States holds oil in reserve. It holds grain in reserve. It does not hold fertilizer. When supply tightens, supply tightens. There is no cushion, no emergency tap, nothing to draw down on while the system catches up. Now the list. 12 foods, in roughly the order they will hit your shelves over the next 90 days. Number 1, bread, and any product made from American hard red winter wheat. Wheat needs nitrogen at the boot stage. Without it, protein content drops, and without protein, the loaf does not rise the way it used to. Bakers, downgrade. The first sign on the shelf is not a missing loaf. It is a smaller loaf at the same price. Watch the weight on the label, not the size of the bag. The bag stays the same. The bread inside shrinks. Number 2, anything made from corn. And the list is wider than people realize. Cornflakes, corn tortillas, corn syrup, which is in roughly 70% of processed food on a normal supermarket shelf. Corn-fed beef, corn-fed pork, corn-fed chicken. Let me tell you a quick story. Daniel is 36, lives in Brooklyn, New York, software engineer at a fintech company. Engaged, no kids, 2-bedroom apartment in Park Slope. His father lives in Queens and has Parkinson's. Daniel visits twice a week. When Daniel was 22, Hurricane Sandy hit. He remembers the lower half of Manhattan dark for days. He remembers his neighbors charging phones at the only deli with a generator. He thought he understood emergencies. March 2020. The shelves at his Brooklyn supermarket went empty for 3 weeks. Not for 1 day. 3 weeks. Toilet paper, beans, specific medications. The supply chain that everyone in his neighborhood took for granted simply stopped. His apartment was 800 square feet. He had room for nothing. A coworker, also a Sandy survivor, gave him the documentation about a year later. Daniel read the section on urban preparedness first. The documentation was honest. Apartment dwellers cannot store like homesteaders. The math doesn't work. What apartment dwellers can do is build a different kind of system. Vacuum-sealed long-term staples in flat containers under the bed. Water in stackable 5-gallon containers in a closet. Medication buffer of 30 days kept in rotation. A small power station for critical electronics. A relationship with 2 people in the building who have complementary supplies. A simple plan to get to his father in Queens if the bridges close. Today, May 2026, Daniel has roughly 40 days of food in 800 square feet, plus water for 2 weeks. He is not a homesteader. He's a Brooklyn software engineer whose apartment is configured to function for 40 days without a supermarket. The complete documentation costs less than what Daniel was paying for delivery during the worst week of March 2020. 7 days money-back guarantee. Link in the description. When the grid fails, knowledge doesn't. Back to the video, continuing. Pause for 1 minute, because what comes next is the hardest part of this whole video. If you live in an apartment or house with a small pantry, or you have not started thinking about food storage seriously, the documentation has a section called Pantry Math. It is not about hoarding. It is about knowing what stores well, what does not, and how to rotate so nothing is wasted. Link in the description. Now back to the foods. Number 3, beef, specifically grain-finished beef. Cattle eat corn. Corn needs nitrogen. When nitrogen costs jump 50% in 3 weeks, ranchers do one of two things. They either absorb the cost and lose money this season, or they sell off breeding cows early. Both responses lead to the same place: less beef in 12 to 18 months. Watch ground beef pricing in October. That is the indicator. If ground beef passes $7 a pound nationally, you are seeing the first wave of culling work its way to retail. The leaner cuts will move slower in price than the fattier ones, because grain-finished cattle yield more marbling, and that is the first thing the shopper notices. Number 4, eggs. Laying hens eat corn and soy. The math is identical to beef. You will see eggs go from $3 to $5 to $7 per dozen by region. You will also see new label sizes. 8-count cartons appearing where 12-count used to be the standard. Watch the carton, not just the price. The shrink hides in the count. And cage-free and pasture-raised tiers will spike before commodity eggs do, because those operations have less buffer. Number 5, milk and most dairy products. Dairy cows eat fertilizer-fed alfalfa, fertilizer-fed corn silage, fertilizer-fed soybean meal. Milk is at the end of 3 fertilizer chains, not 1. The first product to thin out is not whole milk. It is butter. Butter requires roughly 20 pounds of milk per pound of butter. When milk supply tightens, butter is what drops first, and the price of the brick climbs faster than the price of the gallon. Cheese is right behind butter, especially aged cheese, because aging means a longer commitment to the input cost. Plain commodity cheddar holds longer than artisan cheese. The artisan tier disappears first. Number 6, pork. Same chain as beef. Corn-fed. Sow operations are already culling in the Midwest. Bacon will be the visible item that moves first because bacon has the strongest emotional anchor in the average shopping cart. Pork loin and shoulder will move quietly behind it. Smoked products will hold longer because the smoking process gives them shelf life and a price premium that absorbs the input shock. Number 7, chicken. Same chain, corn and soy, same outcome. Chicken usually adjusts faster than beef because the birds turn over in weeks, not years, so you will see chicken normalize sooner, but you will also see it spike sooner, possibly as early as July. The first product to thin in the chicken category is rotisserie. Whole birds will hold longer because they tie up less labor at retail. Frozen chicken parts will hold longest because they were processed before the price shock. Number 8, cooking oil. Specifically soybean oil and sunflower oil. Soybeans use less nitrogen than corn, but they still use it. And sunflower oil supply was already disrupted by the Ukraine war and never fully recovered. Now you have a second shock layered on top of an unhealed first shock. Watch quart-sized bottles. The half-gallon size will quietly disappear before the quart does. The quart will get more expensive, but it will stay on the shelf longer. Olive oil will track its own crisis from Spain and Italy, separate but parallel. Avocado oil will spike disproportionately because it is a small market without a backup supply chain. Number 9, pasta, specifically pasta made from durum wheat. Durum is grown in narrow zones, North Dakota, parts of Canada, Italy, Tunisia. Durum is even more nitrogen sensitive than bread wheat. Italian pasta is already being reformulated with blends. Read the package. If the back label now says, made with a blend of durum and common wheat, that is the reformulation. Same shape, different texture, different cooking time. Some major brands are quietly increasing the percentage of common wheat in the blend without changing the front of the box. The texture gives them away. Pasta that turns mushy at 9 minutes used to hold to 12. That is the tell. Number 10, beer. Barley needs fertilizer. Hops need fertilizer. Aluminum cans need fuel cost stability, which they currently do not have. Mass market. American lagers will hold price by reducing pack sizes. The 18-pack will reappear where the 24-pack used to live. Watch for it. Craft beer will hold longer because the margin is higher. Imported beer from Europe will spike first, especially anything from Belgium and Germany, where energy costs are still recovering from the Ukraine winter of 2022. Number 11, rice. Rice is the staple for half the planet. India is expected to harvest below normal in 2026. The United States imports specialty rice from Thailand and Vietnam, both also exposed. Long grain rice in 50-pound bags will hold longer than 5-pound retail packaging. The retail shelf is the first to thin. Costco and Sam's Club bulk buyers will see it last. Smaller grocery stores will see it first. The category most at risk is jasmine rice because it depends almost entirely on Thai exports. Basmati from India is the second category to watch. Domestic American long grain will hold the longest of the three. Number 12, Sugar, and anything made primarily from sugar. Cane sugar in Brazil, beet sugar in Europe and the Midwest all rely on nitrogen. Brazilian crop yields are projected below normal this year. The first item to disappear is not the bag of sugar, it is the candy aisle, specifically regional and store brand candy. National brands hold longer because their contracts hold longer, sometimes by 12 to 18 months. Walmart, great value chocolate vanishes before Hershey does. Watch the small bags at the register. They go first. Then comes the cereal aisle, where store-brand sweetened cereals reformulate to use less sugar without changing the package. That is your 12. Bread, corn, beef, eggs, dairy and butter, pork, chicken, cooking oil, pasta, beer, rice, sugar. Before we get to what you do, one more thing you need to understand. This is not a single shock. The fertilizer crisis is the visible top layer. Underneath it is fuel cost volatility, which is hitting transport. Underneath that is climate variability, which is hitting yield. And underneath that is a labor shortage at the agricultural level that no one wants to talk about because it is politically uncomfortable. What this means in practice is that even if the Strait of Hormuz reopens tomorrow, the price effects will continue to ripple for 9 to 12 months. Fertilizer is not the only thing constrained. It is the easiest thing to measure. Now, what do you actually do? 3 things. In this order, not in any other order. First, decide your storage horizon. Not 3 days, not 3 years. Most apartment dwellers can hit 30 to 40 days. Most homeowners can hit 90. Pick the number that fits your physical space, not the number that sounds impressive at a podcast level. The wrong number is the one you abandon in week 3. Second, prioritize foods with the longest shelf life that match your existing diet. White rice, stored in oxygen. Sealed Mylar bags lasts 25 years. Pinto beans, dried, vacuum sealed, last 15 years. Rolled oats last 7 years if stored cold and dry. Honey, raw, never spoils. It crystallizes. That is not spoilage. Powdered milk and nitrogen flushed cans lasts 10 years. These are the anchor staples. Build around what your family actually eats, not around what looks impressive in a pantry photo. Third, rotate. The phrase is first in, first out. Date everything you buy with a permanent marker. Use the oldest first. A storage system without rotation becomes a storage system that throws food away. That is the difference between actual preparedness and decoration. Decoration impresses neighbors. Preparedness feeds your family. Here is a 30, 60, 90-day roadmap. In the next 30 days, build your baseline. 2 weeks of food that your family will actually eat, plus water at 1 gallon per person per day, plus the basics of light and power for a 72-hour outage. That is the floor. Anyone can hit that floor for under $300. In the next 60 days, double the food horizon to 4 weeks and start rotation. Buy what you eat what you buy. The pantry should not look like a museum. It should look like a working kitchen with depth. In the next 90 days, push to whatever your physical space allows. For most people, that is 6 to 8 weeks. For some, it is more. Add redundancy in cooking methods, a backup way to boil water that does not depend on the grid, a backup way to keep insulin or critical medication cold. Those last 2 are what most people skip. A note on what not to do, because this is where most beginners burn money in the first 3 months. Do not buy specialty long-term storage food at $6 a pound when rice and beans are 40 cents a pound. The marketing is loud, the math is bad. Do not buy more freezer than you can run during a multi-day power outage. Frozen storage is power-dependent storage. If your power is out for 48 hours, half of that freezer becomes a liability instead of an asset. Do not buy a 500-pound order of a single staple. Diversify across categories. The mistake is always concentration. The fix is always spread. 300 pounds of rice with no beans, no oil, no salt is not a pantry. It is one ingredient. In the pinned comment under this video, I left 3 things I could not fit in this window. Specific food categories I expect to hit shelves in August, a storage budget breakdown for under $300, and the one piece of equipment most apartment dwellers skip. Read it before you close the tab. The information in the comment is free. The full breakdown, with sourcing tables and rotation schedules, is in the documentation linked below. Most of all, do not wait for the news to tell you to start. By the time the news tells you to start, the shelves will already look like Brooklyn in March 2020. Empty, for weeks, not days. The fertilizer crisis is not a one-season event. The next bulletin from the Food and Agriculture Organization is due in early June. The corn yield estimate from the Department of Agriculture is due in late June. Those 2 reports, read together, will tell you whether August looks like normal August or whether August looks like the second wave. Either way, the cost of being 30 days early is a few $100s. The cost of being 30 days late is a story you tell your kids in 20 years. Subscribe and keep the bell on. We track these things every week, so you do not have to. The next FAO bulletin is in early June. The June crop progress report comes out 2 weeks later. We will read both, summarize them in plain language, and post the same day they drop. When the grid fails, knowledge doesn't. See you on the next one.